Coming up is an interview featuring Dr. Katie Takayasu. She is an integrative medicine doctor. We're going to be talking about all that and also Dr. Katie Detox, a 10-day guided health reset. You won't want to miss this. My special guest today, an integrative medicine doctor. She helps patients heal naturally with acupuncture, mind-body medicine, botanical medicine, nutrition, and lifestyle optimization. She has healed me in more ways than I can tell you, and I'm going to talk about that as well. Welcome to my show, Dr. Katie.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Wendy. This is really a pleasure. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm more excited to be here. And I think most people are starting to get the hang of what integrative medicine is. So I'll let you explain that. But first, I want to talk about how you became interested in it and how you found it and how you balance your life with it.
Oh, sure. Thanks for asking. So, I found integrative medicine pretty authentically. It was something that sort of happened to me and, I sort of discovered along the way. And it really started, very authentically mostly it happened to me when I was in residency. So when I was a kid growing up in Ohio, I grew up in Northwest Ohio in a really rural part. I ate a lot of meat and a lot of potatoes and didn't probably get enough physical activity, even though we lived out in the country. And I was a really chubby kid. And when I got to medical school and just sort of saw the volume of things that were in front of me that I needed to learn, for the first time in my life, I started struggling with anxiety and depression and actually lost a lot of weight and just wasn't really feeling very good about life or taking care of myself. And that really continued, honestly, into residency when we were working 80 hours a week and there was just really no time for self-care. And as I sort of discovered along the way what made me feel better, which was not eating hospital food, which was working out, more regularly when I could. When it was seeing my acupuncturist, that made me feel, most whole. And then also started to do yoga. I sort of discovered along the way that I had all the components of integrative medicine. And integrative medicine is that beautiful mix of Eastern and Western medicine. So it's all the Western medicine that every typical doctor learns in residency or in medical school. And then that's combined with what we call evidence-based complementary modalities. And I use that word evidence-based, really purposefully because it's important that we not just make willy-nilly recommendations about what herb might work, but that we actually use evidence, meaning studies and, papers that have been written on this kind of thing to help guide our decision making with patients. And so I happened into it super authentically through the course of my own struggles in life. And I ultimately sought acupuncture because my primary care doctor told me about it. And it was in the context of wanting to have a baby. And I really credit it with really shifting my life in a positive way and ultimately, leading me to fellowship and to being able to practice this way. And so I'm, every time that I, take care of you or take care of another patient, I am just reaffirmed in what I already know to be true.
And a lot of times you find and you read about and you hear that some drugs, some surgeries, they just won't work on certain people as well.
It's so interesting. We're getting into that phase of medicine where things are becoming so individualized. And what is really fun about, practicing integrative medicine is that we have so many different tools in our tool belt that we can usually find something that will work for someone because not everything works for everybody, though there are sort of tried and tested things that generally do work for most people. But I love the idea that we can be very, very individual in what we recommend to patients and also that the care, not only in integrative medicine, but in cancer care, in cardiovascular care, all those kinds of things are becoming more individual.
And I love that. I think that it's because we're doing it from the inside out and we're getting to the root of the problem. We're not just saying, oh, take this medicine or take that medicine. And I think that's what was happening for such a long time with me as well. And then it was like, well, okay, well, you can't just take that to fix it. You have to find out what the issue is. So lifestyle plays a big role in our health. So it's all factors that influence health, wellness, everything takes into consideration, mind, body, spirit, all of it.
Yeah, exactly. I'd like to imagine sort of a tree, and the top of the tree, what you can see above ground is all the different diseases and things that happen to us. Right, we know that we have diabetes, or we have irritable bowel syndrome, or we know that we have chronic depression or anxiety or migraine headaches or whatever's going on in our lives. But below the surface, like in the roots, that's where you see things like poor lifestyle choices, like not eating the foods that make you feel good, not exercising enough, not getting enough sunlight, or spending enough time with family and friends that bring us joy. All of those things, chronic inflammation, it's all like the root cause of disease, but we don't really think about those things. We just sort of, in Western medicine, we were just like, oh, this person's got diabetes, let's give them a medication, right? But no one's really talking about, well, what can you actually do in your life, in your lifestyle to make you, feel better, so that if you do need a medicine, because, life's not perfect, sometimes you need
Right.
medicine, that you have a good, fertile ground to like plant that medicine in.
So rest and spiritual self plays a huge part in that. And what we eat, how we move, how we sleep, pay attention to our spiritual selves, all that matters.
Absolutely, absolutely does matter. And those are really the four pillars of what I come back to in my practice, and really even, how I guide my own life. I remember when I started, COVID sort of started and my yoga teacher started being online. My husband was like, how much money are you spending on virtual yoga every month? And I was like, this is not my exercise budget. This is my mental health budget. And
Right.
we had a good laugh about it. But like, a lot of things that we do, like yoga practice is a really good one, actually cross lots of different parts of that spectrum. It helps us sleep better. It's great for physical movement, and then obviously there's a big spiritual and breath connection. So it's really, we can choose things in our life that really serve us. The same thing happens if you decide to eat a little handful of almonds before you go to bed instead of a bag of potato chips. The almonds not only help you sleep because they're assisting in natural melatonin production, but they're also like really satiating, and they keep your blood sugar level throughout the night. So, it can really soothe someone who might be a little hungry before bed. So there's lots of different things we can do to help ourselves in this way. And that's what integrated medicine doctors do. We help navigate that for people.
My special guest today, Dr. Katie, she's an integrative medicine doctor. We're talking about all this integrative medicine, combining traditional Western medicine. Explain what Western medicine is to people that don't understand it.
Yeah, so Western medicine is the type of medicine that, like all of us that are trained in medical school, practice. So the way that doctors go through medical education, is that we go through college and then we apply to medical school, and we go through 4 years of medical school. And in that, you learn a pretty standard curriculum across most medical schools. And you do that for the first 2 years. And then the second 2 years, you start to incorporate more like practical stuff. So you get into the clinics, you get into the hospitals, you start working with teams of residents. And if you're, a patient out there in a hospital, at some point in time, you may be taken care of by a medical student. And please be nice to them, because it's not easy being a medical student, for sure. But after you finish medical school, you have to figure out like what you want to do with your life. And that's where the specialties come in. So after you finish medical school, you would do a residency in, say, general surgery or in internal medicine, or you could do what I did, which is family medicine. And then from there, you can decide if you want to subspecialize. So that's where we get cardiologists or cardiothoracic surgeons. Those are fellowships that are happening after residency. But we're all trained basically the same way. And that's using the idea that like there are things that go right in the body and there are things that go wrong. And when things go wrong, when there's pathophysiology, then we basically learn ways to treat that. And the hallmark way that we treat, in Western medicine is really medicine, medicine and surgery. But when we think about, ways that could be done a little bit better, we could do more work with lifestyle, the way that we actually live our lives. But would you believe, like at my medical school, which is a tremendous medical school, I'm so glad I went there, we spent a hot 4 hours talking about nutrition, like one half day. Like
Wow.
almost no time at all, right? So it's no
Yeah.
wonder that like the average doctor just doesn't really have a great knowledge of like what someone should actually be eating. It's because not very much time in medical school is spent on that.
It's a shame. Hopefully more now. So let's talk about, I want to talk about two special things, vitamins and acupuncture. Vitamins
Ooh,
first.
yeah.
Everyone thinks they need vitamins. Everyone goes to the drugstore and buys what, there's 100 different kinds. What do we really need? And is it specialized to every single person? And does some people not even need it?
That's a really great question. So, you bring up a great point, which is that the amount of vitamins available is overwhelming. I know what I'm doing when I go into like the vitamin aisle at Whole Foods, and even I get really overwhelmed. And it's not even that big. It's like, two aisles
Right.
or something at my local Whole Foods. But there are some sort of blanket recommendations that could be made for almost everybody just based on the way that we live our lives. So, a couple of things that can be super high yield for people. First and foremost, I should say that I really believe in getting nutrition from food. The most bioavailable stuff that
Mm,
you can get out there is just like making sure that you eat a very well rounded, mostly Mediterranean, plant forward diet. We can talk about more if you want on that subject. But it's difficult for many people to get in omega 3 fatty acids. And omega 3 fatty acids are the fatty acids that we find in things like cold water fish, so like our wild salmon, wild black cod, wild halibut, tuna as well. And they're also available, these omega 3 fats are available in plant sources like walnuts and chia and flax seeds, and other sources like whole organic soy. But it's really difficult for a lot of us to get in like a serving or two of wild salmon, especially when wild salmon's not in season or it's not available at your local grocery store or wherever you shop. And so having an omega 3 supplement for many people can be super helpful. There's a lot of brands that I like, but Nordic Naturals is a really nice one. And generally, if you eat about one serving of salmon a week, you're getting maybe 2 or 3 thousand milligrams over the course of that week with
mhm.
one serving of salmon. So you could theoretically, break that up into 7 days and figure out like how much you would sort of need to have in a supplement form. Another thing that's kind of really good across the board for most people, because again, it's just hard to get it in the diet, is vitamin D. So vitamin
So
D is what
important.
we, yeah,
I'm a
and
big
it's
fan.
crucial. You're right. Yeah, I know it makes people feel better. A lot of people can't really put their pulse on exactly what it is that feels better in their life, but they know that they do feel better when their vitamin D is being supplemented. And vitamin D, typically, if you can get 20 to 30 minutes of like unobstructed sun every day, then you really shouldn't need vitamin D. The problem is for most of us, we live in the northern hemisphere
Right.
and it's cloudy, right? So you just don't get as much vitamin D as you need. And so taking a bit of vitamin D3, which is the over the counter version, which is more bioavailable than actually the prescription version, is really the way to go. And to know how much vitamin D3 to take, you really probably should have your level checked with your physician. And you can ask your doctor to check vitamin D25OH, and that's the hallmark test that you're asking for. And then your physician, your integrated medicine physician can guide you on how much to take. But most people take 1 or 2,000 international units a day kind of for maintenance, and you may need more like 5,000 or even more if you're on the deficient side.
See now, I'm telling everybody, I came to Dr. Katie. I had, I knew something was wrong. I knew I wasn't feeling great, and my whole world, just was coming down with so many personal things. And when I found you, it was like my whole life changed.
Cool.
Seriously. So I
Yeah.
credit Dr. Katie. If you just tuned in, you should visit her website. It's www.drkatie.com. She's a miracle worker and kind and everything good, and everyone should at least go to visit you one time, and then they'll never stop. So
You're sweet. Thank you for saying that.
yes, I mean it. I mean, you learn so much, and it's so interesting. And it's not like just going to the doctor where you do your regular thing. It's deeper, it's better, and I've never felt better in my life. So thank you for that. Let's talk about
Oh,
acupuncture for a minute. I've experienced it, and there's several different. I mean, acupuncture is almost for you can treat it with everything, or
yeah. I mean, not everything, right? But there are a whole list of um, conditions that acupuncture has been proven effective for, and that list is put out by the World Health Organization. So you could just like Google that. But there's a ton of different things, everything from GI issues to headache to chronic pain to fertility to managing perimenopausal symptoms. I mean, osteoarthritis, you name it. There's probably an acupuncture treatment for it. But acupuncture is so delicate. And the reason that it's really delicate is that it takes into context not just like what's actually physically happening to you, but really understanding why it's happening to you. And in Chinese medicine, there's this whole idea that we have an innate amount of energy. They call that your qi.